Now this past week Nio finished down over 2%, which of course it is something that continues bringing some strain onto, of course, those that are investing onto the Nio stock. I mean, this past week we saw Nio giving us their, of course, May deliveries, and I must say they came out lower than, of course, the kind of deliveries they had reported in April. This is something that was not good to see, but yeah, like I said on that video, I'm still remaining, of course, hopeful that we will see a recovery onto Nio. But ladies and gents, this coming week they will be giving us their Q1 earnings, and I must say so many of the people will be closely monitoring that, because on that earnings Nio will give us, or they are said to give us, of course, not only how they performed in the Q1 of 2023, but they will also give us the guidance of what is it that they expect, or the kind of deliveries they expect to deliver now in the month of June, which is something that obviously analysts or so many of the investors that are investing onto Nio would want to watch or see or closely monitor those earnings. Now, as seen on the screen, notice that, of course, for the Q1 of 2023, Nio managed to deliver total vehicles of over 31,000, or just over 31,000, which we already know that it was of course on the lower side of their bracket or estimates, which obviously it was something that it was quite incredible, because they managed to, of course, deliver as per what they projected. So even for this upcoming Q1 earnings, we are going to see Nio giving out the projections of what the kind of deliveries they expect to deliver for the month of June. And as you have seen, or as we have been seeing, Nio, when they make a guidance, they sort of like try to match or make sure that they, of course, fall within the bracket, which is one thing that will be very important, because like I said, it will tell us the kind of deliveries that Nio expects to deliver in June, which we all know that if they project 31 or over 31,000 vehicles again, it would mean that for the month of June they would have to deliver over 18,000 deliveries, which I don't know, but we are yet to see, or we are going to closely monitor or closely see the kind of guidance that Nio provides. But otherwise, analysts on this Nio stock are expecting Nio to deliver total revenues of around 11.93 billion RMB or Chinese yen, with a negative in earnings per share of 2.63, which obviously if we get to see Nio beating that, we might see, of course, the stock surging. Because one thing that you will notice on the, of course, this upcoming earnings, you will notice that the kind of deliveries that Nio delivered for the Q1 of 2023 are almost similar to the kind of deliveries that Nio produced for, of course, Q3 of 2022. And because on Q3 of 2022 Nio delivered total deliveries of over 31,600, whereas on the Q1 they delivered just over 31,000 deliveries. So this means that, of course, there are some similarities. So we can use the kind of revenues they generated probably in Q3 of course 2022 against the, of course, what we can expect on Wednesday. Though obviously in Q3 there was no ET5, which we all know is the cheapest model that you find on the, of course, Nio cars. So we need to also factor that one in, because obviously the average sale per car will, of course, differ from the average sales per car they were reporting maybe in Q3 of 2022. But nonetheless, it can give us plus minus what we can expect to obviously see Nio generating. Otherwise, before we forget the house rules, so you already know that this video is just an entertainment video and not a professional financial advice video. Now I really appreciate it if you just hit the like button if you are enjoying this kind of content, or if Nio is one of the stocks that you follow. Please consider hitting that subscribe button and click that notification bell so that at least you get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. Because Nio is one of the stocks that we discuss, or I discuss a lot on this channel, because it is a stock that seriously dominates my stock market portfolio, meaning that when Nio sneezes, it sort of like affects my entire stock market portfolio, because I think Nio right now constitutes to about over 60% or around 60% of my entire stock market portfolio, which is something that obviously, yeah, it is very important that I closely monitor this, because on this stock I'm already down, I think, 60%, but I'm still hopeful that it will of course recover, it will do very well, which is something that of course I look forward to, because my average onto this stock is below just below $24. So yes, without wasting any more of your time, analysts are expecting Nio to deliver total revenues of around 11.93 billion, with the earnings per share of just negative 2.63, which obviously if we get to see Nio of course delivering or beating that, it might result in the Nio share price to surge. But another most important thing on those earnings is obviously the guidance that they will give us on the kind of deliveries they expect to deliver for the month of June, which will of course conclude their Q2 deliveries. So as I've said, in the Q1, one thing that we saw is that there are similarities in terms of the kind of deliveries that Nio reported on the Q1 of 2023 when you compare to the Q3 of 2022, because Q3 2022 Nio delivered over 31,600, and now in Q1 of 2023 Nio delivered just over 31,000. And during that Q2 we saw of course Nio managing to generate total revenues of around 13 billion RMB or Chinese yen, which obviously it is lower than the current projected of course revenues from the Q1 of course earnings, which are expected, or which analysts expect Nio to report total revenues of just around 11.93 billion RMB. So I personally think that there are chances that we see Nio of course beating the analyst expectations, which is something that I think as an investor you need to of course closely monitor that, because if they reported 13 billion RMB in the Q3 of 2022, we can expect them to at least of course deliver something that is close to that figure, which of course, like I said, though we need to of course factor in that of course in the Q3 Nio of course had not really started delivering as many ET5s as possible, and you will know that with the ET5 it has been that car that has been boosting the new deliveries, and obviously it is cheaper. So the average sales that they were generating in Q3 and the average sales per car they were generating in Q1 will sort of like slightly differ, due to the fact that the ET5, it is the cheapest model that of course Nio started selling heavily in the of course or after the Q3, and that is of course the Q4 of 2022. So yes, I remain bullish towards the earnings, and I would like to see of course Nio beating analyst expectations of reporting at least around 12 billion RMB or Chinese yen, which if they manage to do that, it will be of course good or quite good. And now when you go in terms of the earnings per share, you will know that obviously that with the earnings per share it is of course quite difficult to predict, because ladies and gents, it gets affected by so many of the things: operation and maintenance, I mean the research and developments, I mean the of course unveiling of new cars, which is something that obviously it does of course has an implications on the kind of earnings per share that Nio generated. But of course in terms of the gross margins, I expect the gross margins to be better than the kind of gross margins we saw in Q4, because you will know that the lithium battery prices, which is one of the things that of course does have a huge impact into EV cars because of the expensive batteries, it has been dropping, or we saw it dropping drastically, which of course EV companies like Nio would benefit in terms of margins because of that. So I know the gross margins are going to improve from what we saw in Q4, but of course with the earnings per share, honestly I don't want to lie to you, I don't know how Nio will come out, or how Nio will announce their earnings per share, but I hope that they announce a much lower earnings per share, or a much better earnings per share than what analysts expect. Now as for the Q2 guidance, I personally believe that Nio will come with of course a strong number or a high delivery number, because ladies and gents, for the month of June, or in this month, Nio would have of course started delivering most of their new vehicles, which will seriously drive some good sales into Nio. So I expect at least 10,000, or Nio saying that of course what they expect to deliver a minimum of 10,000 vehicles of course for this month of June, which obviously it can be more, I think, because as most of you already know that Nio unveiled the ES6, which is one of the models which is expected to do very well in terms of sales. I mean, there have been of course so many articles running around saying that Nio in 3 days after the launch, or the official launch, they saw of course orders of around 30,000, which is something that is incredible, and just to show you that that is a vehicle with some good demand. So I am expecting Nio to at least come maybe with a worst case scenario, come and say the guidance, or in June they expect to deliver 10,000 vehicles, but nonetheless I would really like to think that the average might be 15,000, looking at the fact that now in June Nio they are starting with the deliveries, or they sort of like they've started with the most of their deliveries. I mean, now for the month of June they are expecting to start with the deliveries of the ES8. They are starting with the deliveries of the ET5 touring or station wagon. They've started with the deliveries of the ES6, which is something that obviously will boost the, of course, the deliveries. The EC7 is another vehicle which they officially started selling end of April, which is also expected to sell some good number of sales, though they will be way below the kind of sales that are expected to be generated by the ET5 and the ES6. Otherwise, that's all from me, and I make tons and tons of stock market investing videos. If you think that the video was amazing, please don't forget to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. But once you subscribe, don't forget to hit or click that notification bell so that at least you get notified by YouTube every time I drop a new content. Otherwise, that's all from me, and I wish you nothing but the best in your stock market investing journey, and God bless you all.